Imagine Tinder, but on steroids, where instead of an awkward coffee date, the fate of an entire nation hangs in the balance. Where instead of Instagram filters, there is the skillful flattery of a court painter. Where instead of messages like, "Hello, how are you?" there are spy reports on smallpox scars, the health of teeth, and the future queen's ability to bear heirs. Welcome to the world of royal marriages in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, the riskiest and most ruthless dating service in human history. In our time, the choice of a partner is a purely personal matter. We search for a soulmate, a person with whom our interests and views on life align. For a monarch of the 15th or 16th century, all of this was empty chatter. A king or prince didn't marry a woman, he married lands, armies, alliances, and most importantly, a healthy womb capable of producing a healthy boy. Love? That was a pleasant bonus that happened about as often as Halley's Comet. More often than not, spouses saw each other for the first time only after their marriage had been sealed by every possible treaty and oath. And this entire multi-year, costly operation to select the perfect match was based on two things: portraits and the dispatches of ambassadors, and both were monstrously unreliable. Let's start with the profile picture. When a monarch decided it was time to acquire a wife, messengers were sent all across Europe. Their task was not simply to deliver a proposal, but to launch a complex mechanism of remote viewing. The best court artist was dispatched to friendly or potentially friendly countries. His mission was akin to that of a bomb disposal expert. One wrong brushstroke could blow up the fragile political balance. The artist had to create a portrait of the princess that was, on the one hand, realistic enough that his master would not feel deceived upon a personal meeting, and on the other, flattering enough that this master would want that meeting in the first place. It was a delicate art. The artist couldn't just paint a beauty if the princess was, to put it mildly, not much to look at, but he could choose the right angle to hide a double chin. He could use lighting to make the skin appear pale and aristocratic rather than sickly yellow. He could emphasize a luxurious gown and jewels, distracting attention from crooked teeth. He could paint the fingers long and elegant, even if in reality they resembled sausages. This was medieval Photoshop, and the best masters like Hans Holbein the Younger had perfected it. The most classic and tragicomic story associated with this kind of royal catfishing is, of course, the fourth marriage of King Henry VIII of England. By 1539, Henry was an aging, corpulent, and extremely irritable monarch. After the death of his third wife, Jane Seymour, who had given him his long-awaited heir but died of childbed fever, the king remained a widower for 2 years. His chief advisor, Thomas Cromwell, understood that England needed a strong ally in Europe against the Catholic alliance of France and the Holy Roman Empire. A union with the German Protestant princes seemed the ideal option, and the best way to seal such a union was through marriage. The choice fell upon Anne, sister of the Duke of Cleves. The problem was that no one in England had any idea what she looked like. Henry, who, despite his tyranny, was a great connoisseur of female beauty, demanded a portrait. The great Hans Holbein took on the task. The artist traveled to Düren and created a masterpiece. In the portrait, Anne of Cleves appears as a modest, pious, and rather comely girl in a lavish German dress. Her face is calm and symmetrical. Her skin appears smooth, her gaze gentle. Henry liked the portrait. He liked it very much. He was ecstatic. Negotiations moved forward at full speed. The marriage contract was signed, and Anne embarked on the long journey to England. Henry, who remained a romantic at heart, decided to surprise his bride. Disguised as a simple nobleman, he arrived incognito in Rochester, where Anne was staying, in order to, as in the chivalric romances, astound her with his love at first sight. The surprise was a success. Only It was Henry himself who was astounded, and not in a good way. The reality was far from Holbein's canvas. Anne was a tall, large woman with coarse features and, worst of all, skin marked by smallpox, which the artist had tactfully overlooked. She spoke no English, possessed no courtly talents, could neither sing nor play a musical instrument, everything Henry valued in women. Her only skill was needlework. The king was furious. He burst in on his advisors, shouting, "I like her not." He later spoke of her even more crudely, calling her a Flemish mare. A catastrophe. The marriage had already been concluded by proxy. To annul it would be to deliver a mortal insult to the powerful Duke of Cleves and destroy the alliance so necessary for England. Henry had to grit his teeth and go to the altar. Their wedding night was the apotheosis of this fiasco. In the morning, the king complained to Cromwell. "She is no maid, by the looseness of her breasts and other tokens," which was most likely just an attempt to find a pretext for annulment. The marriage was never consummated. 6 months later, Henry found a way to get rid of the mare. He claimed that Anne had been previously betrothed to another, and therefore their marriage was invalid. Fortunately for Anne, she proved to be a clever and compliant woman. She did not argue, agreed to the divorce, and in gratitude, Henry bestowed upon her the title of the king's beloved sister, several estates, and a handsome income. She remained in England, outliving Henry, all of his subsequent wives, and even his son. But for Thomas Cromwell, the organizer of this matchmaking, things ended grimly. The enraged king did not forgive him for the Flemish mare. Cromwell was soon accused of treason and beheaded. And so, a bad swipe, based on a photoshopped portrait, cost one of the most powerful men in England his life. But the portrait was just a tip of the iceberg. A far more important, though less visible role was played by ambassadors and spies. These men were the eyes and ears of their monarch. Their reports were a kind of extended profile of the bride, and they included the most intimate and humiliating details. When an ambassador arrived at the court of a potential bride, his task was not merely to conduct diplomatic negotiations. He was to carry out a full-blown investigation. He bribed handmaidens, ladies-in-waiting, and physicians to find out everything. Is the princess healthy? Does she have any chronic illnesses? How regular are her monthly cycles? This was a key question, as the ability to bear an heir depended on it. What is her physique? Does she have any physical defects hidden beneath her voluminous gown? A clever ambassador would try to see the princess in an informal setting, on a hunt, on a walk, to assess her gait and figure. The Spanish ambassador at the English court, describing a future bride for his infante, reported not only on her beauty and education, but also that she has a good appetite, which is a sign of health. Another ambassador, observing a French princess, meticulously noted in his dispatch, "Her teeth are even and white, though her gums are a bit dark. Her breath is fresh." Imagine the level of stress for a young princess who knew that her every step, every bite of food, even the smell of her breath, was being analyzed and sent in a coded dispatch thousands of kilometers away. Sometimes it reached absurd levels. When a bride was being sought for the young King Louis XIII of France, his mother, Marie de Medici, sent her confidant to inspect the Spanish Infanta, Anne of Austria. The messenger was not only to assess her appearance, but also to try to determine if she could have children. How did he do this? He watched her for hours while she ate, played, and prayed. He even managed to bribe her seamstress to give him the Infanta's exact measurements. His report read like a veterinarian's assessment of a thoroughbred horse: height, weight, chest circumference, hair color, skin condition. But even here, deception was possible. The princess's court did everything to present the goods in the best light. The girl was rubbed with perfumes to mask unpleasant odors. Her cheeks were rudged with beet juice to give her a healthy look. She was fitted with dresses with special corsets to hide figure flaws. Servants were paid to lie about their mistress's wonderful character and robust health. It was a game of cat and mouse where kingdoms were at stake. If the portrait and the ambassador's report satisfied the groom, the next, even stranger stage began: marriage by proxy, or per procurationem. Since the bride and groom were in different countries and could not meet in person for the wedding, the ceremony was conducted with a representative. This was usually a high-ranking nobleman who recited the marriage vows on behalf of his king. The bride would wear a wedding dress, be married to this representative, and from that moment on, she was legally considered a married woman, the queen of another country.
But the wildest part of this ritual was the so-called bedding ceremony. For the marriage to be considered not only concluded but also consummated, that is, physically completed, which made it practically indissoluble, something more than just vows was required. After the wedding feast, the new wife was put to bed. Then, the groom's representative would enter the bedroom. In the presence of numerous witnesses, courtiers, bishops, notaries, he too would get into the bed next to the bride. To keep things within the bounds of propriety, he was usually fully clothed, sometimes even in armor. But the key moment of the ritual was that he had to slide his leg, sometimes bared to the knee, under the covers and touch the bride's leg with it. This symbolic act, recorded by a notary, was considered official confirmation of the consummation of the marriage. After this, the representative would get up and leave, and the bride would begin to prepare for the long and dangerous journey to the country of her husband, whom she had never seen, but with whom she had already, formally, slept in the same bed. Many had such a marriage by proxy. For example, Catherine of Aragon and Arthur, the eldest son of King Henry VIII of England. When the Spanish ambassador played the role of Arthur in this ceremony, he symbolically united two powerful dynasties. The irony of fate is that later, when Arthur died and Catherine married his younger brother, the future Henry VIII, the question of whether her first marriage had been consummated for real and not just symbolically became Henry's main argument for a divorce, which ultimately led to England's break with Rome and the creation of the Church of England. One strange bedding ceremony would have repercussions for all of Europe decades later. And so, after months of negotiations, exchanging portraits, spy reports, and a marriage to a stand-in, the moment of truth arrived. The bride arrived in her new country for her first meeting with her husband, and here, anything could happen. Sometimes, as in the case of Henry VIII, it was a complete disappointment. But there were also opposite situations. When Isabella of Castile, one of the most influential women in history, was to marry Ferdinand of Aragon, their marriage was pure politics, aimed at uniting Spain. They had never seen each other. Moreover, Isabella was in danger. Her half-brother, the King of Castile, was against this union and could have had her arrested. Ferdinand had to secretly, disguised as a merchant, make his way through hostile lands to meet his bride. And when they met, according to contemporary accounts, a spark ignited between them. It was that rare case where political calculation coincided with personal chemistry. Their union became one of the most successful in history. It not only united Spain, but also ushered in the Age of Discovery. But more often, the first meeting was simply awkward. Two strangers, speaking different languages, bound by a marriage on which the fates of millions depended. They didn't just have to like each other, they had to produce an heir as quickly as possible. Imagine the pressure. The entire country, the entire court was watching and waiting. After the first wedding night, courtiers would shamelessly discuss whether everything had gone successfully. The absence of a pregnancy in the first few months became a matter of state gossip and political intrigue. Sometimes, the clash of personalities was so catastrophic that it led to tragedy. King Louis VII of France and his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, were complete opposites. He was pious, ascetic, and indecisive. She was vibrant, energetic, educated, and a free-spirited heiress to vast lands in the south of France. Their marriage was a nightmare. During the Second Crusade, which Eleanor joined her husband on, she reportedly behaved too freely and even had an affair with her own uncle. Louis was horrified by her conduct. In the end, after 15 years of torment and the birth of 2 daughters, but no son, they obtained an annulment on the grounds of being too closely related. It was a political bombshell. Eleanor, free and still a very wealthy bride, immediately married Louis's chief rival, Henry Plantagenet, who soon became King Henry II of England. Her vast French domains now belonged to the English crown, which became one of the main causes of the 100 Years' War between England and France. Thus, the personal incompatibility of two people brought together by politics planted a landmine under the future of Europe.